Okay, let's talk about the easiest way to add fractions. And this is going to be great for many of you out there because adding fractions can be quite a challenge for students because you have to think about the LCD. And this is not only for adding fractions, it's also for subtracting fractions. So oftentimes you're going to have to find the lowest common denominator. And typically, when students have to do that, they have this expression on their face. They are not happy about thinking about the LCD. Now, of course, we can have nice, easy, basic fraction problems that are super easy to do, and finding the LCD is not a problem. But then we can have more interesting fraction problems where finding the LCD becomes quite challenging. Okay, so I'm going to show you a technique that can add and subtract fractions every time 100% correctly without having to deal with the LCD. So you're definitely going to want to stick around to watch this technique if you've never seen it before. But before we get going, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TC Math Academy. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher. I've been teaching math for decades, and I'm here to tell you that you can be great in math. But what you need is great math instruction that's clear, understandable, and comprehensive. So if you're at the middle school, high school, or even college level, check out my Math Help program. You can find a link to it in the description of this video. I promise you it will make a huge difference in your ability to understand and learn mathematics. Also, if you're preparing for any sort of test with a math section, something like the GED, SAT, ASVAB, maybe a teacher certification exam, I have a ton of test prep courses out there that you can check out. If you homeschool, I have excellent middle and high school math courses for homeschoolers that might interest you. And hopefully you have your own great math notes. But if you do not, I'm going to leave links to my math notes in the description of this video. But you definitely have to learn how to take your own notes. But you need something to study from. And if this video helps you out, don't forget to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so let's talk about fractions. And this title of this video, I can actually modify this and say the easiest way to add and subtract fractions. So this technique does apply to subtracting fractions as well, because when you subtract fractions, you have to think about the LCD. But subtracting fractions, there's also a little bit of an added twist that we'll save for another video. But we're going to go and just focus in on adding fractions. And let's take a look at some real basic problems here. Okay, so here's our first problem. We have 3/10 plus 1/10. So we're looking at this problem, and let's say you were looking at this and you're thinking, okay, I'm supposed to add these fractions up. What's your first move? What's your first step? You're like, okay, I have to look at the denominators, these bottom numbers, and you should be asking yourself, okay, are these things the same? Okay, if they are the same, of course they are in this particular example, then we can simply add up the numerators. In this case, it's 3 and 1, 3 plus 1, and this is how we add fractions. If the denominators are the same, we simply add those top numbers, the numerators, and then we will get the problem right. So we have 3 plus 1. Here is 4 over 10. And then when you're dealing with fractions, you always want to fully simplify and reduce your answer. So I can reduce 4/10 into 2/5. Okay, but this answer right here is correct, but this is the simplified version. So when you're dealing with fractions in anything, multiplication, division, adding, subtracting, always fully reduce or simplify your fractions. Okay, so if you understand that, that's excellent. Let's take a look at another problem here. So we have 3/10 plus 2/5. So first things, I'm like, okay, I got to add these fractions, but here the denominators are not the same. So I have to think to myself, well, how can I make these denominators the same? Well, this is when you have to think about the lowest common denominator. Now, you can see my answer here, or you can see the answer right there. So what's the lowest common denominator? Well, in this case, it's 10, all right? So most of you out there are probably thinking to yourself, oh yeah, so what you could do for this fraction, this is easy. I can make this 5 into a 10 by multiplying by 2. So if I multiply this bottom number by 2, this denominator by 2, we're going to multiply this numerator by 2. So this is going to be 4 over 10. Okay, so this new fraction is 4 over 10. So now my denominators here are the same, 10 and 10. So what I need to do is simply add the numerators. That's 3 plus 4 over 10. Okay, so hopefully you're with me. And the answer is 7 over 10. Okay, so again, very basic kind of stuff. And if you didn't understand this lowest common denominator part, well, then you definitely want to check out some of my additional videos on the lowest common denominator, what it is, and how to find it. But again, these are really easy problems, okay, when it comes to basic, like fraction, concepts and whatnot. So hopefully you understand this. You're like, yeah, this is how I learn fractions, not a problem. Show me your easy way, Mr. YouTube Math Man. Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Let me show you another problem, okay? So here we have 3 over 20 plus 7 over 15, okay? So what's the situation here? Well, again, I'm trying to add fractions, and I'm looking at the denominators, 20 and 15, and I'm like, okay, these are definitely not the same. So now I have to find the LCD, and first of all, I got to know how to find the LCD. The LCD is 60, okay? Now, if some of you out there, could recognize that or could do this, that's excellent because you need to know how to find the lowest common denominator. But in this case, I'm going to have to fix up both of these fractions to get a 60 in the denominator. So here I'd have to multiply this by 3 and this by 3, both the denominator and numerator by 3. I get 9 over 60. And here I'd have to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 4 so I can get a 60 in the denominator. Okay, so I'm going to end up with 20 over 60. So finally, I have the same denominator, the lowest common denominator. These denominators are in common, okay? It's the lowest number such that they could be in common. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the numerators. So that's 9 plus 28 is 37 over 60. Okay, so if you were like, yes, yes, I understand I do all this stuff, what's your little secret weapon? Um, you're probably, yelling at me. Come on, get to the good stuff. Well, I want to just show you that most of you out there could probably handle these type of problems, and these are not that difficult of problems. But what happens if I gave you this problem? Okay, so here we have 3 over 172 plus 12 over 305, and I said, do not use your calculator, add these up. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting for a lot of students. They might go like this, and they're like, now their hair starts standing up, and they're like, okay, yes, okay, now go ahead and show me your secret technique. Okay, well, here's the deal, right? Here, the denominators are clearly not the same, so to find the LCD, okay, probably a lot of you could do this. You're going to have to do a lot of factoring. You're going to have to break these numbers up, and it's going to be a considerable amount of work to find the LCD. And once you find the LCD, you're going to have to change both of these fractions such they have the LCD. Then you're going to have to add the numerators, etc. Should you be able to do this problem? Yes, okay, you should be able to find the LCD, but I'm going to show you a technique where you could do this type of problem, any problem, adding and subtracting fractions by just following a quick little procedure. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you this now, okay? I call this the bow tie method. So let me just draw a nice little stick figure here. So this is a bow tie. We've all seen it. It has this basic shape to it. So I call it the bow tie method because I want you to remember this pattern, okay? So here is the pattern, and it's an exact pattern. You got to follow the steps just like this. So here is a nice, easy example. We have 2/3 plus 1/2, okay? And we're going to go ahead and add these fractions up without even thinking about the LCD. Of course, we know that the lowest common denominator is 6, but what we're going to do instead is use this technique. Okay, so here's how it works. You always start from the bottom right, okay, this denominator to the right, okay, so it's this very specific pattern, okay, don't deviate from this order, you will get the problem wrong. So you start here, okay, and then you're going to multiply across, so you're kind of forming that bow tie kind of pattern. So this is going to be 2 times 2, so it's going to be 2 times 2, which is 4, okay, so you're going to put that up in the numerator, and of course we're adding fractions, so this is going to be addition. Our second step, so this is step 1. Step 2 is we're going to start from the bottom left. We're going to multiply this way. So that's going to be 3 times 1, of course, is 3. Okay, and of course, this is our numerator. Okay, we have an addition sign. So 4 plus 3 is going to be our numerator, our top part of the fraction. So how do we find the denominator? Okay, so we went step 1. Step 2, so the last step is to multiply across. 3 times 2 is 6. All right, so let's go ahead and put this together. So 4 plus 3 is 7 over 6. There is the answer, okay? And it was just boom, boom, boom. Okay, we didn't have to think about it. Now, let's just go ahead and prove to ourselves. So we're like, okay, we know the LCD is 6. So normally you would probably say, okay, I have to multiply this by 3 to get a 6, this by 2, and this by 2 to get a 6. So now this fraction becomes 4 over 6 plus 3 over 6. So now I have common denominator, so this becomes 6 over 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay, so some of you are saying, well, this is easy, or, why is this technique better than this technique? Well, because in these more challenging problems, you can always just follow this simple pattern. The only thing about this particular pattern that sometimes you may have to do is reduce your final answer. Okay, sometimes you do not have the lowest common denominator, but you should be doing that anyways. You should always reduce your final answer. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and do this problem using that technique. And you can use a calculator to assist you. But here again, I don't have to think about the LCD. I'm just going to go ahead and follow this pattern. So it's going to be this number times this number. So that's 305 times 3. Okay, that's is going to be forming our numerator. Plus 172 times 12. Again, you got to do it in a specific order. 172 times 12, so that's 12 times 172. This will be our numerator, and then our denominator will be 172 times 305 right there. So we can break out our calculator if we want. So 3 times 305 is 315, 12 times 172, 2,064, and then 172 times 305 is 5,460. So let's go ahead and add the numerators, and you get this fraction right here. Okay, this is the correct answer. Now, this may not be fully simplified or reduced, but that's a different issue, and that's easier to do than finding the LCD. Here, to reduce a fraction like this, you start testing numbers. You're like, okay, does 3 go into this number, and the numerator and denominator? You start testing numbers. Does 2 go into this? What really helps you when you're trying to reduce a fraction with like a large numerator and denominator is divisibility rules, okay? Divisibility rules. But if you have a calculator, you can just start testing values. 3 and 2 are excellent ones to start with. Here, I'll give you the ones that you want to know. 3, 2, 5, obviously 10. There's rules, divisibility rules. If you haven't learned them, you definitely want to learn them. But you just start, finding common factors, and you kind of whittle this down. That's a lot easier than finding the LCD, etc. But I'm not done yet. Okay, let's go ahead and see this bow tie method in action when it comes to adding and subtracting when it comes to algebra. So here is a problem, x over y plus z over w. Well, algebraically, how can I add these fractions? Well, let's do the same thing. That's w times x, or xw, plus y times z, or yz, over y times w, I'm sorry, y times w. I have y times z. Look at that. I am correcting myself as I go. See, I make mistakes just like anyone else. But the key is this. You find your mistake and you correct them as you go. That's why double checking is so important. But anyways, it's going to be y times w, so y times w, and there you go. Okay, so if you were told to add these fractions up, this is what you need to do algebraically to come up with an expression that represents the sum of those two fractions. You need to know this technique, okay? You absolutely need to know this bow tie technique. I'm telling you, I've been doing math for many, 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 many years, okay? But you also need to understand the LCD as well. So you can't really escape out of it, but you need both techniques, all right? So hopefully this is the first time you've seen this, okay? Because if that is the case, then this is going to be really exciting for you. You're going to be like, oh, this is so awesome. Again, this applies for subtracting fractions as well, but I want to do a separate video on that because we can be dealing with some negative number issues. But I just wanted to get you to understand this bow tie technique. Okay, so if you need additional help with fractions or anything basic math, I'm going to give you a couple suggestions in my math help program. I have 3 courses that I would recommend. One is my Math Foundations course. It's like a little mini course, covers all basic math that you kind of learn from elementary school, percent, fractions, positive, negative numbers, kind of like elementary school and middle school kind of stuff. Then I have Pre-Algebra and Algebra 1. These are also cover things. Actually, I do not teach fractions in my Algebra 1 course, so really maybe just the Math Foundation and my Pre-Algebra course are the two courses that I get into fractions if you're looking for fraction help. Of course, I have a ton of videos about fractions on my YouTube channel, but hopefully this video helps you out. And again, if that is the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.